So firstly, what was your reaction after all these games were confirmed for Mate Martonga as part of the Oceania Cup and the GB Alliance Tour?
It's obviously outstanding. It's something that we've been asking for a long time, to be able to look ahead to a schedule that's set and has some really meaningful games and obviously some really big games for us as well. And they're all. When we look at a New Zealand game, that's one that's needed to be on the calendar for a while, and it's a terrific grudge match, and one that both teams will be right up for and really looking forward to. So that's a big one to start with, and we'd obviously love another go at both England and Australia, from the point of view of the World Cup and losing the way we did to the English team, and wanting to prove ourselves against the best in the world with Australia as well. So it's an outstanding calendar and something we're really looking forward to.
Obviously, you're a month or so into the NRL season in your new role for the Knights. How's it been juggling club coaching with the Tongan job? Have you had time to keep an eye on the Tongan players around the competition?
It puts me in a better position to see how the Tongan players are going and to catch up with them a little bit more regularly, and being a bit closer to Sydney also assists with that as well. And I've been able to go into Sydney a couple of times and catch up with numerous guys. So I have been able to keep a really close eye on things, and I'm really happy with how all of our players are tracking at the moment. There's some guys that have been regular over the last few years that are all in really good form, and there's some terrific young talent coming through, guys like Tony Staggs, young David Fafita at the Broncos, young Mawagi Fodawaker at the Titans, Junior Totola, who played a game for us last year and did a really good job, and he's coming along in leaps and bounds and playing some really regular starting NRL at the moment for South. So it's great to see those guys continuing to progress.
First up is the highly anticipated clash with the Kiwis on June 22nd. This rivalry is one of the biggest in international rugby league, and there's so much extra emotion around the game. How do you approach it as a coach?
Look, I think we handled it really well at the World Cup, and there was obviously a lot of emotion around that. And what helps with that is really good players, and what we've been able to get to over the last few years is we've obviously got a really good group of players there that are good players firstly, and they're all really good people, and their experience allows them to handle those big occasions. And guys like Jason Tomalolo, Andrew Fafita, Siawa Takiaho, all those guys have played in some really big games now, both at their clubs and internationally. Will Hopewadi you can put into that boat too. So they'll certainly help the younger guys, and that experience of playing in big games is how you get better at it.
The last time these two sides clashed, your side won. Can you and your team use anything they took from that day on June 22nd?
Look, I think you take a lot of confidence out of it, and it's certainly given us a lot of confidence going forward, and I think we've been a better team with more expectation on ourselves and more expectation from others since that day. You can't take a lot out of it in terms of how we want to play in the future, because we'll be a slightly different team, albeit a lot of the same players, but we'll be a different team, and the Kiwis will be a very different team, and we need to make sure we're looking forward and continuing to have some really good performances like that if we want to maintain the momentum that we've had over the last year or so.
While we're on the subject of that clash, tickets go on sale this week. Have you got a message for fans in New Zealand who have been unbelievable the last 2 years?
Yeah, unbelievable is a good word. They've certainly been that over the last couple of years, and we've managed to sell out all of our games over the last 2 years since the World Cup and including the World Cup, and it's all on the back of our fans. So my only message is to keep supporting us, and we really appreciate the support, and we certainly look forward to seeing you all at Mount Smart Stadium, and while it's played in New Zealand, we certainly want to make it feel like a home game for Tonga as well.
There are some rumours that efforts are being made to lure some of the NZ-born Tongan players back to the Kiwis. Is there any truth to that?
Oh, look, there is a bit of truth to it, yes, and we certainly hear those things as well. And it's not just some of the New Zealand-based guys; it's some of the Australian guys as well. There's plenty of effort and encouragement to try and encourage players to play State of Origin as well. And when you've got some of the best players in the world that are all Tongan and are eligible, to be playing in the NRL as a Tongan player, you've got to be dual eligible, and we certainly expect that, and it's not something that I'm bothered by, because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, it just shows the talent that we've got there, and I mentioned before some of the emerging talent that if we do lose a player here and there, It's the same with when Felice Kafusi went over to Australia, or there's others that have done the same thing. We've always been able to fill that spot because we've got so many good young blokes coming through. But I'm also very, very secure with the guys that we've got there that their commitment is with Tonga. And while I know that for a guy like Tavita, there's certainly some lure to play some Origin. It's up to him to say whether he wants to do that this year or whether it's something he wants to do down the track. And I'll leave that to him to make that decision and to make that public as well. But there's certainly a lure there. But one thing I know with all of those players is that their long-term future certainly lies with Tonga, and that commitment hasn't wavered at all.
Jason Tamalolo is one of your few key players from recent campaigns who have been injured to start the season. Can you give us an update on Ada Hingano and Jason? Do you expect them to be back for June?
Got to expect them both to be back for June. Jason's obviously a 6 to 10 week injury. Knowing Jason well, he tends to heal really quickly, and I'd be surprised if he's not playing NRL well before the June test. And certainly getting some games under his belt so that he can be fit and healthy and ready to perform. And it's the same with Ada. Ada's actually started the year and played his first 80-minute game against our reserve grade a couple of weeks ago, and by all reports he played really well in that game, and he played really well again on the weekend. And knowing Ada, he's got a terrific work ethic, and he's a guy that really strives to get the best out of himself. So I think he'll be fit and firing by the time we play in June.
What's your approach generally with picking players for the test who haven't played much NRL after coming back from an injury?
Oh, look, it all depends on who they are and how fit they are, and there's a lot of things to take into account there. But at the end of the day, you want the best players to play for you, and you want the guys who are in form, because they tend to play. If they're in form, they tend to play well in big games. So that's what we'll look to first and foremost. And if there's a few positions where we're short and we need to bring someone in who's a little bit underdone to get the job done, then we might have to do that in some cases, but I don't think that'll be the case.
There are some reports that Tavita will play for New South Wales this year and will have to miss the June test. What's the latest with that situation, and have you had a chance to speak with him? And is he still able to play at the end of the year if he still plays for the Blues?
Yeah, look, I have spoken to Tavita a number of times about it, and as I said before, that's up to him to come public and make a decision there, and he has to make a decision because there's a clash, and at some stage he's going to have to make that decision which way he wants to go. But one thing that he's made really clear is that his future lies with Tonga and beyond any state of origin games, and the only choice that he's going to make is between whether he plays for us against the Kiwis or whether he plays in a state of origin game. And he is eligible to still play for Tonga even if he does play for New South Wales. By the rules he's allowed to do that, and again it's up to him which way he goes. But I don't for 1 minute doubt his commitment to Tonga. I know that he's extremely rock solid there, and whatever he does in the mid-year, I expect to see him back in the red at the end of the year.
If Tavita is missing, there's no shortage of young forwards eligible for Tonga, with the likes of Katoni Staggs and David Tavita for the Broncos, South Prop Junior Totola, and Gold Coast's Moeaki Fotuaika.
Yep.
What have you made of the form of these youngsters? Are they on the radar?
They're all on the radar, and they're all progressing really well. Young Moeaki played plenty of first grade last year as an 18-year-old, and he's become a real stable there in terms of playing every week NRL at the Titans, and by all reports getting better and better. And we'll get a first-hand look at him next week, obviously. Junior, I've been really impressed by the way he started his year, and as I said before, he's last year as a bench player for Souths who didn't play every game. This year he's started every game in the front row in a very, very good pack and a good team who's going well. So he's certainly progressing very well. And young David and Katoni are progressing really well up there in Brisbane as well. And the good thing for both those guys is they're playing regular NRL every week, and they're getting better and better and more up to the standard every week as they do that. So they're both going to come into very close contention, and that's probably missing a couple of guys like young Manasi Fainu, who's at Manly as well, and obviously we get to have a look at him this weekend, but he's a really talented young player who's been in and around the group a number of times now, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he's progressed. And I don't want him to go too good this weekend, but I certainly want to see that he's playing well because he's right in the mix.
Lastly, Lolo Hia and Connie Harrell are now playing in England in a league side that's struggling. Have you had a chance to watch those guys, and are they still in line for selection?
Yeah, I have had a chance to look at those guys, and obviously there's Ben Murdoch-Masila and a Kumatai over there as well. So we've got a few over there that we try and keep an eye on. And as I said, I have had the opportunity to have a look at a couple of games and see how they're going. And it is difficult with the guys based in England for a mid-year test, just to to actually physically get them here and get them prepared for a game on such a short preparation, and whether they can be at their best with the travel in between. So that's something we have to consider, as well as the expense of it. But it's a bit of a case by case, I guess, in terms of how other guys that are based over here are going, and whether we think we do need to bring those guys in because they're the best or the only ones in that position. So they'll certainly be considered, and they'll be considered probably more so for the end of the year, all those guys. Again, there's a possibility for mid-year as well.
Cool. Thanks, Wolfie.
No worries.